We are very, very fortunate to have Flora Terra with us to speak. She is a native of Kenya, which, as most of you know, is very dear to Jim's and my heart. And she is going to tell us of her life story, which is both fascinating and in some ways horrendous. So please welcome Flora Terra.
Thank you so much, Connie, and I feel so blessed to have met Connie and Jim, because for the first time last night I was speaking Kiswahili. And they have these two little boys that were all over me. They're called dogs. We don't keep dogs in our houses. We keep them out there. So I'm getting used to the Canadian pet being in the sitting room. And I feel happy they're getting used to me, think I'm more familiar because we wear the same colors, black. I was born and brought up in the slopes of Mount Kenya many years ago, before all of you were born. And at the slopes of Mount Kenya, I always saw snow at the mountain, and honestly, I did not know that snow was this cold. And when I came to Canada, I was like, everyone was asking me, so how is winter, how is snow? And I was telling them, I can't describe in any language. So I was the seventh born in a family of 9. And my father took us to school. I'm emphasizing on being taken to school because many of my age mates were actually not so much going to school, and if they ever went to school, they would not. They never finished their class 7 because they were prepared. Women were young girls were prepared for marriage. They were prepared to go and serve their husbands, and I started experiencing gender disparities from the time I was a very young kid. One, because we were 7 girls in the family and 2 boys, and the chores we did and the way the boys spoke to us, I knew there was a difference between my brothers and I. And I always questioned my father, which is a norm within the Kenyan society. Women are supposed to be seen, not to be heard. But my dad had an ear for me, and every time I questioned him about my brothers, he always told me, you're not supposed to ask anything. These are the people that are going to defend you, so you cannot do as they say. And my brothers were kind of, I would say, bully, and we really had a very hard time. I remember times when we would not be up by 6 o'clock. They would put chili in our mouths as we're sleeping. Oh. And you would think it's probably saliva, and the minute you lick it, you're all over screaming. And you would just sit there in the living room with my mom and say, look at your girls. See, they're screaming. We'll wake up all of them screaming. And as usual, of course, my mom was quiet even to my brothers. So those are some of the things I was seeing as I grew up. And when I went to primary school, I was among the very many girls that never went through female genital cutting. And I felt segregated because they used to call us dirty, and there was, that indifference, but I did not understand, and I did not know that female genital cutting was harmful. I really did not know, but I always questioned my mother. And thank God to my parents who were brought up by a Christian foundation. They never practiced the very harmful culture. I went to high school, and in high school is when I learned English. So I could not differentiate kitchen and chicken, toes and fingers. As you all know, Kiswahili we call, like we have similar names, and it's very interesting that when I spoke of toes, sometimes I meant fingers. So I would be asked, which fingers are you talking about, on your legs or on your hands? So it was really interesting to learn English, and I'm topping up by confusing myself more in learning a seventh language, which is French. So I can speak Kalenjin, I can speak Luo, I can speak Luya, and if Jim and Lynn and Connie can tell you, I have features of 5 tribes in Kenya. So if I went to Mombasa, you really know whether I'm from coast. If I went to the Nyanza, you wouldn't know that. So I tended to, catch languages very fast. And in high school is when I learned so many things about our cultures in Kenya. In high school is when I learned about child marriage, because in my tribe, in Meru, children are not married off, but in other tribes, you get an 8-year-old child marrying a man that's old enough to be the grandfather. And it's very normal for an 8-year-old child to be prepared, or what you need to do to show that she's ripe, you need to bead her. So when they're beaded in red, then it means they're ready for marriage. And when the mothers and the aunties are telling them to go out there, they're ready for marriage, they're not telling them about issues they will find. They're not teaching them about their reproductive health. They're not telling them about the sexually transmitted diseases, because this is a man who has several other wives, legal wives, and this is a man in a community where they are around wife sharing, and this is known in Kenya, and people have lived with it as normal. And in my later presentation, I'll tell you how I came to, to advocate for to these clan elders, cultural gatekeepers, to really know that polygamy also brings in so many, viruses and stuff like that. And in high school, because of the mix of people from all over the country, I also learned about widow classing, which is also a cultural practice in Kenya and around Africa, and which is very harmful. Widow classing is where if your husband died of any disease, you have to go through cleansing, and cleansing means you have to spend a night with one of his relatives to be cleansed of what your husband has died of, be it AIDS, be it any kind of disease. You have, as a woman, to go through this cleansing. And the clan elders and the cultural gatekeepers are the main people that the government listens to. So in as much as the civil society talks about these harmful cultural practices, no one will comment, because it will still go back to the clan elders to seek for guidance and stuff like that. And I learned so much in school. Apart from the academic part of it, it opened so much about my country and the culture, but I never, ever thought all these were harmful cultures. I never thought so. I thought it's a practice like any other. So I could not condemn it, but I was envious. I was envying the girls that went through female genital cutting. I was envying the girls that were not, killing themselves with exams, who got married at 80 years. I was envying all this stuff that I was hearing, because if you've gone through the female genital cutting, believe you me, they do not tell you what they go through. They do not tell you it's painful. No one speaks about the practice. It's only just the other day that we started seeing documentaries showing exactly what they do. And I learned just a few days ago that there are some of the tribes in Kenya, the West Pokot, really seal you off. They seal your birth canal totally off, and you have to get through it again when you get married, because